Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I've got a really fun pivot pop-up card to show you, and we're going to be creating a really cute Easter card using some brand new products from the Art Impressions line. We'll start off with some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. I've gone ahead and placed it in my Mini Misty stamp positioner. And these are the brand new images from Art Impressions. This is called the Bunny and Chick set. And you can see, look at all the cute little bunnies, the chicks. Now this is part of the Art Impressions watercolor journal series. And we'll also use this set, which is also from the watercolor journal series. And this is called the Easter egg house set. And we'll just be using the basket and the eggs from this set. So let's go ahead and ink these up. We'll be using the Versafine Onyx black ink, which is a permanent black ink. And then to press those out, I'll use my STAMPendable stamp press tool. Now I'm going to stamp and color in a whole bunch of these images. I did quite a few of them off camera, but I did want to show you the coloring for the 3 different colors of bunnies. This little bunny, I'm using the beige, and these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. And on the cheeks of all of these little critters, we'll be using the Sugared Almond Pink. The colors I'm using will be in the upper left-hand corner as we're going along. And again, I'll show you how I colored in these 3 different bunnies. So I'm just adding more of the beige. I'm not adding a second color. I'm just going to add a little bit more of the beige and blend that out, and I'm using the Zig blender pen to do my blending. So there you can see I'm grabbing that Sugared Almond Pink for the cheeks, and for this little bunny we're just going to use the light gray. I really want it to look almost white. We're just adding a few shadows with the gray, and then I did add a little bit of that pink inside the ears as well. And then for this last little bunny, I'm using the Platinum Brown. And I'm just covering up what I've already colored with a piece of scrap paper. I just don't want to smudge it with my hands as I'm doing coloring on those ones up above. So I'm just going to grab that Platinum Brown, pretty much do that same type of shadowing, and then keeping the center of the face and the center of the body the lightest. So this is some really simple coloring, and as I said, I got really carried away and stamped and colored a whole bunch of these little critters, but I just thought they were just so cute and fun, and I wasn't really sure how many I would need for this project. So at the end, I will show you what I had left over, and you could certainly make a second card with what's left over. So now I've switched over to the light brown, the lemon yellow, and the yellow, and now I've added a little bit of orange to the beaks. I just grabbed a handful of really pretty pastel colors. I will list those down below for you so you know what colors I did use, but I'm just going to mix these up to color in the eggs. And I'll show you just a little bit of coloring for the eggs, just adding a little shadow here down at the bottom of these eggs, and then keeping the tops of them the lightest. So again, I'll just kind of mix and match these egg colors, but later on we'll be adding some more detail to the eggs using a black detail pen and our white gel pen. For the bow, I'm going to use the peach pink, and I'm again going to add some shadows and just kind of pull those colors around. So I am going for an Easter card, but these bunnies could certainly be used for any other card, a birthday card, a thinking of you card. They're just so cute. So keep in mind, they don't have to be just part of your watercolor series. You can use them in different ways. Now for the trunk of this tree, I'm just using the beige and mid brown. And I'm trying to add that mid brown just to kind of highlight those little lines that are already on the stamp. So I'm just darkening those up and then blending it out. And that'll give it a little bit more the look of wood grain. And we're going to ignore that little pot next to it. That is for watercoloring, where you could add some flowers and vines and just fill that little pot full of different flowers, or you could put another little bunny in there. That would be really cute, actually. But I'm going to cut that away later on, so we're not going to bother coloring that in. And then for the basket, I went back to that light gray, and I'm just adding a few shadows to the sides, pulling it in towards the center, keeping that center area the lightest. I've got my detail scissors, and I'm going to cut these out. There are no dies available for these sets, but this is really easy to do. I'm leaving a little white border all the way around. So I just took a little time to cut all of these little pieces out. Now for that little basket, and here you'll see these are all the other ones that I had stamped and colored, and I'm just going to set those aside. So I did get a little carried away there, but I was having such a great time coloring these in. And again, I can use them for many other cards. So now I've got my We Are Memory Keepers magnetic mat. This is just a cutting mat. It's a self-healing mat. I've got my cutting blade, and I'm just going to cut the inside of that basket out. We're going to be putting a little cluster of Easter eggs in that basket, so I'll just take a little time to cut this inside portion away. We can go ahead and pop that out. And then let's grab those pens I talked about before. This is the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen. This is a permanent black pen. It's a 0.1 millimeter, so it's very detailed. And I'm just going to add some little stripes to my eggs, some little dots. And then I'll use that white gel pen to do some highlighting. And we can add some little polka dots with that as well. So whatever you want to do here, just have some fun with these little Easter eggs. So I did that same thing for all of the eggs that I colored in. And all of the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below and also on my blog. Now here's everything that I colored. So I've got a lot of little pieces here, but they're just so cute. And those little eggs will go right inside that basket. Now let's create the card base. So this will be a standard A2 size card. So this cardstock measures 5.5 by 8.5. I'm scoring it at 4 1/4. And so again, that's a standard A2 size card. Now let's take a look at the brand new paper pack from Art Impressions. This is the Easter Journal Series paper pack, and it's got all these beautiful pattern papers in it. I just love this. These are gorgeous. We're going to grab a couple of these to set the scene for the background of our card. And look at those little Easter eggs. You've got some plaids, some beautiful florals, so you've got a lot to choose from. So I'll set that aside. These are the two I decided to grab. So I've got that light blue polka dot and the pretty purple floral. Now I'm grabbing the largest die from my Lawn Fawn Outside In Stitched Rectangle dies. We'll go ahead and run that through the die cutting machine. That'll be the sky for the front of our card. I ran that purple floral cardstock through with that same die. And now I've got the Lawn Fawn Stitched Hillside borders, and we're going to cut a little hillside border for the front of the card. I thought it would just look like a field of flowers down at the bottom. You could certainly use green here for grass, whatever you prefer. And I'm going to die cut 2 more panels for the inside of my card using that same die. Let's set that aside and create the pivot pop-up. So I've got the pivot pop-up die set from Lawn Fawn, and you can see here what it's going to look like. I'm grabbing the pivot mechanism there. We'll grab that panel, and we need 2 of those, and then a couple of the little clouds. That little grassy border, we're not going to be using that one. We're going to be using the Lawn Fawn Slimline Stitched Hillside borders to create our little grassy border today. But you could certainly use the ones that come in that set. So let's go ahead and die cut a whole bunch of these clouds, and off camera I cut a bunch more, and I use the 100-pound cardstock for that. But now we're going to switch to the 65-pound cardstock. And this will be to create the mechanism for the inside of the card. And you do want a lighter weight cardstock here because this is going to get folded up inside our card, and you don't want it to be too thick or too bulky. Now I've got that pretty polka dot paper again, and we're going to create the sky for our little pop-up piece. So I'll go ahead and glue this right inside, and I'm just going to trim away any excess, and then I'll do that same thing for the other side. Now what you want to do is make sure you reinforce that score line if you're going to add pattern paper on top of this little tab mechanism. So I'm just reinforcing that score line on both of these pieces, and we'll be doing that again when we add the floral border down at the bottom. So let's go ahead and add that floral paper. Now I'm just measuring it approximately, and I want that border to look like it continues right across the entire mechanism. So what I've done is just cut 2 pieces of the floral paper to the approximate size, and then I've got my Lawn Fawn Slimline stitched Hillside border die, and I'm going to run it right across both of those pieces, and then I can run that through the die cutting machine, and now that little border will line up perfectly on our pivot mechanism. So you can see it just continues right across. So let's go ahead and glue that in place, and then we can cut away any excess. And I'll do the same thing for the other side. And again, here's where I mentioned before, you want to reinforce that score line again because you've added that purple paper. So you want to make sure that is scored as well. This will make it a lot easier when you go to fold this up. Now we can go ahead and attach these together, and you can see I've got the 2 tabs lined up, and I'm going to slide both tabs behind this pattern paper. So I'll put a little bit of glue right up to the edge there. I'm just pressing it out with my fingers, and then I'll slide those behind the pattern paper and glue those in place. I'm just lining it up with my glass media mat to make sure those are nice and straight. Now you want to fold in the right side towards you and press that out with the bone folder. Then you'll fold the left side in towards you and press that out. And then the center will fold back. So this will create a zigzag or a W shape. Once you have that, let's take the pivot mechanism. We're going to fold it in half away from you. And I've already folded this so you can see exactly where these score lines are. Then you're going to fold it on the diagonal one way and then the other way. And then that will cause this to just collapse on itself. And that will leave you these 2 little triangles on the front and the back. So you can see that there. I'll add some Lawn Fawn 1/4 inch double-sided tape to each of those little triangles. And you do want a nice super strong adhesive here. I do find the tape works the best. So I'll add plenty of it just to make sure that that will stay in place when I open and close my card, because there will be a lot of movement on this little mechanism. So again, you do want to make sure you use a nice strong adhesive. So let's add some to the back side. And again, I'll just cut away that excess. I just wanted to make sure it was right up to the edges. So this will go on the inside of the card, and we're going to be centering it. So let's go ahead and glue these 2 panels on the inside of the card. So that purple one will go down at the bottom, and then the blue sky up at the top. And we can attach that second blue panel to the front of the card. And now we can attach that pretty floral border to the bottom of the front of the card. And before I put that mechanism in, let's go ahead and decorate the front of the card. It's going to be easier to do it now while it's not so bulky. So I'm going to put the eggs in that basket and then just add some glue to the back of that. We'll pop up this little bunny. I'm going to be using the Forever in Time 3D dot adhesives. These are really nice. They're little tiny squares, so it's great for these little critters. And this has quite a bit of dimension to it, so it's really going to pop up this little bunny. Now we can add some more eggs at the bottom of the basket. And then let's go ahead and add a couple of the little baby chicks. And I thought it would be fun to put one up here on top of this little bundle of eggs. And here we'll add one more here at the bottom. And then let's grab the clouds and we can place a few of those in the sky. Now at this point, I did not know that I was going to put a sentiment on each of those clouds. So if you want to recreate the card that I've done here, you may want to stamp those little clouds before you place them on the front of the card. It would be definitely easier, although I didn't really have a hard time with it. But just a suggestion that we will later be stamping hippity and hoppity on each of those clouds. So you could take a second to do that here if you wanted to. Let's go ahead and quickly assemble the inside of the card. And I'm just going to mix up and match up all the different color combinations and kind of mix up the bunny colors. You do want to make sure that you don't place anything on those fold lines. You don't want those folds to get too bulky, and try to avoid popping anything up inside this little mechanism as well. And I would steer away from adding any embellishments like little gems or pearls because again, it's just going to get too bulky. So I'm just gluing everything down nice and flat. And I'm just playing around with the arrangement of all of these little critters. But as I said before, this doesn't have to be an Easter card. You could certainly skip the eggs, just use the bunnies and the little chicks and do a cute little birthday card. There could be balloons up above them. They could be holding balloons. You could have them sitting near a birthday cake. So have some fun with these. These little critters I think can be used for lots of different things. And I'm just checking there to make sure that it's still going to fold up nicely. Let's add that last little chick. And now we've got that pop-up mechanism. So we've got it all folded, and what you can see is there's a little hole in the center, and you can line up that hole with that score line on your card. But I have a little trick for you that I use. I think this is a lot easier. I just measure the center of the card, and I'm just using my Tim Holtz acrylic ruler to mark with pencil that center point. And then I keep the mechanism folded in half. I'll remove the backing from one of those little triangle areas, and then I'll center this on my card. You do want to make sure it's nice and straight when you're doing this, and I'm placing it up against that fold, just a little tiny bit below that fold line, and then I'll remove the backing from this little triangle area, and then we can close the card and it'll pick up that mechanism. So again, I find that easier, but you can certainly do it the other way if you prefer. Now there's two little score lines there. Let me show you the die so you can see that creates those two score lines. So it ends up creating two little rectangle areas, and we're going to put adhesive on those two sides. And you want to use plenty of it. And I flipped it around and I'm putting adhesive on that other little rectangle area. Then I'll remove the backing from the tape on both sides. And now you'll see there's a marking on the top and bottom of that little mechanism, and you can see that the die cuts that little score mark. So I'm going to take the center of the little bunny panel and center it with that little score mark on the mechanism, and then lay this flat and press it right into place. And now we can kind of coax this along. At first it takes a little bit of coaxing to get that to fold properly. So it kind of twists and turns. And you do want to do that a few times just to get that moving in the right direction. And it will take a little while to get that working. So just kind of play around with that a few times. Now let's go ahead and add some clouds to the sky on the inside of the card. And you do want to be kind of careful where you place these because they could interfere with that mechanism a little bit if it gets caught on these clouds. And I probably, if I had to do that over, would have put that cloud right there up a little bit higher. I thought it was a little bit in the way. So if you're creating this for yourself, I would suggest not putting the clouds quite as low as I did there. Now I've got my Easter sentiment set. This is another brand new set from Art Impressions, and it's got all these cute Easter sentiments. We're going to be using Hippity Hoppity and Easter's on its way. So I'm going to lay this flat on my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station. As I said before, we're going to do some stamping in those little clouds. I've got my Hero Arts acrylic block, and I'm cutting that stamp in half. So I'll do two separate words for hippity and hoppity. And we can always put that together again if we want to. But again, you could have stamped these clouds before you assembled your card. For ink, I'm using the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide ink in the Speckled Egg. I thought that would keep the front of the card very soft and pastel, and it matches that paper, that pattern paper, really well. So I've got hippity and hoppity. And then for the inside of the card, again, we're going to use Easter's on its way. I'm just prepping that stamp a little bit, just rubbing it with my finger to take off any film. And I'm just testing that stamping before I go to my cardstock. I did the same thing for the hippity hoppity as well. I just did that off camera. And now I've got my brand new nested oval dies from Art Impressions, and I'll take those two smallest ones. But you can see how many dies you get in that set. It's a really great value, and you get so many. Now I'll just go ahead and tape that smallest die to the sentiment, and this other one to some leftover of that pattern polka dot paper. We'll run these through the Sidekick machine, and now that sentiment will fit right inside that larger oval. We'll go ahead and glue that together. And now we can attach it to the inside of the card. I'm just centering that. And now we can add a few little embellishments around that sentiment. I've got a little cluster of eggs, and we'll add another one of those little baby chicks. I'm just trying to decide where I want to put that. And you can see those are all the pieces I had left over. So again, I could certainly make another card with that, or a cute little bookmark, something fun. So I've got my white gel pen again, and I'm just going to add a few highlights to everything on the outside and on the inside. Let's take a closer look at the finished card, and you can see how cute these little critters, these little chicks and bunnies are, and our fun little pivot pop-up. So I really hope you got inspired to give this a try. And I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.